Hello. So this is my first look at DayZ. I never really wanted to play the mod because you had to go out and buy a completely unrelated game to it. But this is the new standalone version, which is now available on Steam. It is an early access alpha version, and the game points that out at the start. So there are quite a few bugs and irritations in it as it stands. But it seems to be quite a reasonable platform for the game. You know, it's got reasonable options, so start looking through those. Turn the volume down because they always put the volumes too high for music in games. It has picked a slightly weird resolution. It's not gone for my native resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. It went for some strange lower resolution, but no problems changing it. It allows you to resize the HUD, although there isn't that much on the HUD, and it's got quite a lot of options. Yeah, I don't think there's many games out there that have let me change the amount of video memory, and I have no idea what alpha to coverage means, but yeah, that's what you get with graphics options these days, a bunch of stuff that you can't even understand. There's so many acronyms that you just sit there going, do I want that on or do I want that off? I have no idea. Not many game options, but what I'm going to look for is the key bindings. Because it's an alpha, there's no hints in the system that I can find, so the only way you can work out what you can do is by looking through the keys. It has got fairly standard first person shooter keys, although some of the keys are a bit strange. I'm assuming it's because those are the keys used in armour. So you can lean left and right with Q and E, and you've got the standard movement keys, although shift makes you move slower rather than sprinting like it does in most games, and space isn't the jump, it's V. So there's quite a few instances in my first playthroughs of me just hitting the keys that I think should do it. There's very little character customization. The only things that are worthwhile actually changing are male, female and skin colour, because your outfit changes pretty much as soon as you get into the game and start finding things. And I couldn't find anywhere to change my name. So I don't know if I just missed it. People are screaming at the screen going, it's there, but I couldn't find it. So there are a lot of servers for an alpha, and I simply went for the one with the lowest ping. I changed the filters so that it didn't show me full ones or passworded ones. So I just went for the server that was running the fastest for me. And didn't have too many people on it, because this is a PvP game. So what is DayZ? The object is to survive. I think that is the only object in this game. I'd say there's nothing to tell me with this alpha, and as I haven't played the original, I don't know. But you start off in the outfit you selected, and you've got a torch, and that's about it. You also start off thirsty straight away. So if you start off in a remote wilderness, you're pretty much stuffed if you can't find water or soda. The mouse sensitivity is incredibly high when you go in. So my PC is pretty much set up for shooters like Battlefield and Metro were the last ones that I played, and the mouse was fine in those. But in this, it's very jerky. It's either very slow and smooth, but as soon as you start turning it up to make the mouse more responsive, it gets very jerky and snappy. But it's not too bad. So this game reminds me a lot of Half-Life in its graphic style. Its textures are very similar in quality. So even though DayZ's a new game, it looks a few years old. Having a crowbar is also quite a Half-Life look. So this is the inventory system. Whatever you're wearing will have pockets and storage space, and you can get backpacks and jackets and combat trousers and things like that have storage in. So at the start you have very limited storage options. You really need to find a backpack as soon as possible. If you can't find a backpack, you can't store food and water, and you're pretty much done. You also can't store weapons, and that's the biggest thing I've found, is that it relies on you being lucky at the start. But the game does look really nice. It's got a huge view distance, so you can see around you really well. It's not just an image in the background, it is the actual game you can see off in the distance, which is nice. Frustrating thing I found at the start is a lot of buildings you can't get into. So, not having played the game before, I thought, oh well, perhaps you can't get into buildings. But it's just this particular start area had buildings that weren't open. The sound assets are a bit odd. The sound of a crowbar hitting a wall appears to be a gunshot with a ricochet, but we can forgive that in an alpha. But it is very nice looking when you get outdoors. And the outsides of buildings seem fine. There are a few texture issues inside buildings. Some of them aren't so good. But when running around, it's a very pretty game. So this was the stage where I thought, oh, can you not get in buildings unless the doors are wide open? But you can open doors and run around, but the options are limited. You can't open every door in the game. So the foliage is pretty good even when you get up close to it. I'm really rather impressed. Like I say, it's when you get inside, some of the textures like the floor are a bit ropey, and whatever that is supposed to be isn't great. But then you look at the wood textures and that's really nice. So it is a bit of a mixed bag graphically at the moment, but I assume these are just textures that have been taken from the mod and so haven't been updated. So if you look in here, it's kind of, wood's nice, but the ceiling is awful and the floor is pretty low quality textures. But the art assets are really nice. So things like these shoes and that fire extinguisher are really well done. So on the whole, I would say I'm quite impressed with the way the game looks for an alpha. Usually in alphas you don't have much in the way of graphics. Where this game does suffer slightly is in its combat. I think that needs tightening up a lot. So this is the first zombie I came across, and I thought, right, I'll sneak up and bash it in the head with a crowbar and that'll be it. But no. It's a very good looking zombie. It's well modelled, but there is no feeling to the combat whatsoever. You know, I'm hitting the zombie and there's just a very bad graphical effect for a spray of blood, but the zombie doesn't seem to really notice being hit. and when you get hit, it's very hard to tell. So throughout that fight, it turns out I was getting hit a lot, and I am bleeding out. And that was fighting one zombie with a crowbar. And it will turn out that that combat just ended my game. So what seems to be the rule in DayZ is door handles. Doors with door handles seem to open. So I was assuming I could use rags to stop myself from bleeding. It's giving me a nice little green thing. But there's no guide to help you through this game to tell you what you should be doing. This alpha is definitely aimed at DayZ players. It's not aimed at people who haven't played DayZ before. So I start going through the keys, trying to find out how I heal myself, and then start basically just looking around for options. So here's an example of how unintuitive this game is. I'm trying to eat this thing, and I can click on it, I can change the option, pick it up, drop it, eat it, and I have no idea how to select it. And it turns out that, unlike most games, the mouse button doesn't perform the action. You have to press F to perform an action on anything. So you can't just run up to something, hit it with a mouse button and get it. You can use the inventory system to show you everything that's nearby, but it is not exactly an easy system to understand. But this was my first ever playthrough, so I guess it's something you learn by experience. The thing to look out for if you're going online, which is what I end up resorting to in this clip when it starts going grey and obvious signs of death and a very bad blood spray effect, is that if you look at the DayZ wiki, that is for the mod, not for the standalone. And they've changed quite a few things in the interface and the inventory system. So you can find out the basics of the things you can do, but not necessarily how to do them in the standalone version. So at this point I've escaped out the game to a menu so that I can go and look through Google and look through the wikis to try and work out how I heal myself. I've got rags, which I assume can be used as bandages. There's food knocking around, so I'm desperately trying to work out how I heal myself from bleeding to death and get some health back. One of the things that's missing on the standalone version that was in the DayZ mod from the clips I've seen is a health indicator. So on the DayZ mod, on the right hand side of the screen, you'd get a health indicator and a thirst indicator and I think a hunger indicator, but you don't get those in this. And that's it, I drop unconscious from blood loss. Now it did just sit on this screen for a while saying you are unconscious. I wasn't sure if I would regain consciousness if I was out for a while, but in the end I just got bored of this, and the only thing I could do was escape and respawn. But I think we can forgive the game for not having sort of a you have died and going nicely back to the menus as it is an alpha at the moment. And it's not like the game crashed, it just means you have to escape. So one of the reasons that I didn't play the original mod for this was ganking. So a lot of the videos you ever saw on YouTube for this were people who got loads of equipment just going out and killing newbies, and it's a reports I had from a lot of my friends that played this game. And this is my encounter with my first player. So I've got bare knuckle boxing, he's got an assault rifle, and he's got helmets and gear and all sorts of stuff, and I've got virtually nothing, and you just die. There is no way to defend yourself if you just spawn into the world and meet somebody. So this was me trying to pick up that jacket when I suddenly get attacked by a zombie that comes out of the floor. And the AI for the zombies is a bit strange. So I pulled out my axe and ran away, and then discovered that I couldn't swing my axe. So it's just in my hands. I'm spamming the mouse button to try and hit this zombie with my axe, but it just won't do it. And then, of course, now I've got 2 zombies. So I'm walking around getting hit. You know, there's no real effect to getting hit. It's just zombies. So I decide to make for the house. Try and shut them out, but you can't activate the doors quickly enough to shut them out. So I'll go outside and shut them in. And you can't do that either. So I press space on the axe, which is supposed to do something, but it just puts it up in this vertical, which I hoped was blocking, but doesn't seem to. And this is me trying to desperately get another weapon, but I haven't got another weapon, so I'm kind of screwed at this point. And I get hit through a wall, and then the zombies come through the wall, and through the doors, and through everything. And then I think, yeah, I open the door, they go out. I close the door, they walk through the door. The pathing and AI for the zombies isn't that great. It's like they've just walked through the wall to get ahead of me. And so at this point I decide I will just sprint it. So I think I'm pretty much dead anyway. So I think, right, I'll sprint and try and find somewhere to hide. So I sprint around this corner and slow down and go into this little shack. And the zombie just comes through the wall and gets me. So there's no line of sight for the zombies, there's no pathing, it just... yeah, combat is broken in this game. So, should you buy the DayZ standalone as it is? I wouldn't buy this alpha version. If you're a DayZ fan and have been playing the mod, I'd carry on playing the mod. And if you're not a DayZ mod player, I wouldn't buy DayZ in the alpha state, because it's not really a playable game as it is. It's an interesting thing to look at, and I'm going to keep following it to see how good it is, because a proper zombie survival game is something we've been lacking. The PvP element I'm not all that sure about. I don't see how they're ever going to balance it and get it working properly. But it's an interesting game, and it looks really nice. A few textures that need sorting out, but other than that, I think it's a really good start for an alpha. So yeah, that is it. That's DayZ Standalone, available on Steam. Thanks for watching.